Yo, what up?
What up,
into our United States news, we got a lot of news going on in the United States over the past couple weeks. And, y'all know I go weekly here on this Monday program, but, last week I tried something different. I did a day in the life of the professor. If you caught it, good for you, because it was not live for long. My executive producer made me take it down. I thought it was cool. She did not think so much. Shout out to her. I love her work. Anyways, there have been deaths reported in a Texas measles outbreak. So the Texas measles outbreak has now sickened 124 people in Texas and New Mexico, and an unvaccinated school-age child has died. They're saying there may be some other deaths as well, maybe up to 4 that have not been confirmed yet. We know of only 2 confirmed yet. So this is crazy, y'all. How are we having a measles outbreak after it was eradicated 100 years ago with polio? This is crazy. First COVID, then the bird flu, now measles. What's next? Ebola coming back? We're gonna have the Black Plague coming back. What is happening? We're gonna have I'm so scared. I'm so excited, Zach. I'm so scared. All right. Wow. Anyways, RFK Jr., Health and Human Services Secretary, at first said that measles outbreaks happen every year and that it was nothing to worry about. He then turned that back around, as he should have, because he's the Health and Human Services Secretary, and said that it is the number one priority now for the HHS. These are the first people, even if outbreaks happen every year, to actually die from measles in the past decade. So please keep yourselves safe out there, especially if you're unvaccinated for measles, which at this point, I get not being vaccinated to COVID. I completely understand that, because it was a shot that was made up on the go, very quick. And I understand if people were hesitant. I understand if people were untrustworthy. Completely understand. There's a lot of communities that have been harmed by the scientific community, both white and black. But, a lot of, if you remember the experiments they did on black people, African Americans back in the day. So a lot of people hesitate to take this. I get it. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're not vaccinated for measles or polio, at this point, I think you can assume those are pretty safe. Pretty safe, since they've been around for hundreds. I'm no doctor, so please don't take any doctor's advice from me. But you probably want to be vaccinated to at least those things. COVID, I get it. But measles and I thought you had to get that to go to school. I thought you had to get that to go to public school anyways. Someone help me out in the comments. Do you have to be vaccinated? I thought you had to be vaccinated for polio and measles to be able to go to public school. Someone help me out and let me know if that's the case or not. Moving on. Thousands of workers, federal workers in Washington, D.C. I'm from there. 75% of the people I know are federal workers, so this hits home very close to me, are very worried about their jobs these days with DOGE and the cuts that are going on. Unfortunately, they are taking a chainsaw instead of clippers, and they are cutting a lot of things. And one of the most unfortunate problems with this is a lot of veterans are losing their job, and that's really what hurts me the most. A lot of veterans are on probationary status a lot of different times because of the fact that veterans have veterans preference. Veterans have when they go up for promotions, they have to go on probation. So you could be going up for a promotion to a GS-15, right, as a veteran, but because you're in probationary status, you're at a chance of being fired. And don't tell me it not going to happen, because they fired some of our nuclear engineers and had to rehire them and bring them back because they made mistakes. So again, I am all for DOGE cutting efficiency and effectiveness, the waste, fraud, waste, and abuse of the government. I get it. The government wastes a lot of money. I know it. I've seen it firsthand. So I agree. But when you start to do too much and you try to take a chainsaw instead of clippers and you try to slaughter instead of manicure, that's when things happen to good people. And a lot of veterans are losing their jobs that don't deserve to. A lot of them that got given a lot of good service to this country, not only through the military, but also post-military. So that's something that really worries me there. But we'll see what happens. They're not going to stop. And President Donald Trump has said that there may actually be possibly some checks sent out. I know that's been making the realms of maybe $5,000 checks going out to everybody. I mean, if they're saving that much money, it should be a little more than that. But also, it's been shown that they are not saving as much money as they're claiming, which obviously should be understood by anybody with a logical brain. You should know that they're going to come out and say they've cut $50 billion, but they've only cut $5 billion. You should already know they're inflating everything by 10 times. Now, again, I completely agree with the program, and I want them to cut as much as possible, but they're going to be inflating everything that they say. So when they say they've cut, $1 trillion, they have not truly cut $1 trillion. They've cut like $250 billion. So anything they say, take like take 10 to 20% of that as valid. You know what I mean? Morning Wombat says, LOL, I agree with you. Measles vaccine should be obvious. Well, yeah. By now, right? Measles and polio, if you ain't got that vaccine, I don't know what to tell you because that's been around 100 years. It's safe. I think you could take it. Yes, it is a requirement. I don't know if you still have to be vaccinated for measles or polio, but it should be a requirement. I think Maria Fonseca, my executive producer, says yes. Shout out my executive producer. Thank you. I love you. So it's something that needs to be taken into consideration. Yeah, they are. Lies. Some people would call it lies. I would say it's more hyperbolic. You remember we talked about that word, hyperbolic. I'd say it's more of an exaggeration. But yeah, they're definitely going to come out and say, oh, we've cut billions of dollars when maybe they only found 500 million in that place. Of course they're going to do that. Anybody who thinks that they're not doing that is not thinking logically, because why wouldn't they try to make it as much more? We've all written, I'm not saying it's right. Obviously, it's wrong for you to inflate it by that much, but who here has not eloquently and exuberantly, two great words for a Puerto Rican on a live TV show, fluffed up their resume? Every damn one of you watching this program right to hell now. All of y'all have fluffed up your resume. Now, again, I'm not saying it's right to say that you have, cut trillions of dollars when maybe you haven't. And I'm not even saying that it's right that they have all the access to information that they currently have, because I don't believe you should have access to social security numbers and things like that. But that being said, I do want us to get the waste out of the government. I do want that. I know you don't lie. I've never actually heard you tell a lie in your life, actually, to be completely honest. Exactly. No one is arguing that the government couldn't be more efficient and or streamlined, but DOGE is too destructive. They're firing a lot of talented and capable government employees. Amen. Again, I'm completely with you. I advocate for DOGE cutting fraud, waste, and abuse from the government. I know, as a former government worker myself for 10 years, I know how much the government wastes money. I saw it with my own eyes as a veteran. I still see it with the VA, and sometimes it upsets me when they do things like mail me a big ass mail package for a small bottle prescription. But I'm like, you really didn't need to do that. I didn't need that, and I didn't want that, and you're wasting money. So, and I'm also very big on just making sure you're at least fiscally responsible for yourself and your family, if nothing else. But yeah, you can't just go through with the chainsaw and cut everything, because a lot of people, innocent people, good people, hardworking people, especially veterans in the main part, are losing their jobs. A lot of veterans losing their jobs. A lot of people that have given this country a lot of good years of service are losing their jobs because these cuts are not precise enough. Again, I want the cuts. I advocate for the cuts. I do not advocate for a pig slaughter. I do not advocate for wholehearted cuts that just cut any willy-nilly anyone out the picture. No, that's unacceptable. If we're going to be cutting, it needs to be more precise. It needs to be more targeted. It needs to be line by line. This is what we're cutting, blase, blase, blah. Now, if it's an outrageous program, of course. But then you cannot always believe everything you hear, because, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, both conservative and liberal and moderate. If you watch this program, you know I am an independent. I am a moderate. I am neither conservative nor liberal. I do not like either party. I think all politicians, shout out my boy Francis Long for this beautiful Blue Yeti mic he bought me. If you want to sponsor me, Blue, let me know. Shout out to him. As I always say, politicians are liars, cheaters, and scums. Woo! They all lie, they all cheat, they all steal. They're all out for their own good, the good of their constituents, the good of their family, the good of their pockets. Politicians do not give a crap about the normal person. So when they do these cuts, a lot of people aren't thinking about the faces and the names and the people, innocent people that could be losing their jobs and now not able to support their families. Again, completely agree with cutting the government waste and abuse out. By all means, amen, hallelujah, please do. But can we please just be a little more precise? Veterans losing their jobs, people that I know close to me that have been in government for a long time, scared of losing their job for no reason other than just wanton cuts. We can be better than that. We can. But I totally agree with cutting. I totally agree. The government wastes a lot of money, y'all. I've seen it. It's pretty bad. But anyways, that doesn't mean that, there's a lot more cuts they can make in other places too than just employees. So there's a lot of things that could be done. But my main point about that was you also got to be careful with everything that you hear, y'all, because a lot of times on whether you listen to conservative shows or liberal shows, you're going to get those talking points that they want you to hear. You're going to get whatever that they want their base to hear. And I listen to both because when I listen to the news, I like to check both out. So like, for instance, if I know a news story is going on and it's like liberal minded, I might start on CNN or MSNBC. And then after that, I'll go to Fox News or Newsmax, or sometimes, God forbid, I've watched OAN, the crazy one. It's a little out there. But anyways, I want to see what the differing viewpoints are because I do care about what both sides have to say about the issues. But the problem is when falsehoods start to come out, when they were saying that we were providing, condoms for Hamas, which was not true at all. These things, some of these things, you just can't believe everything you hear and read. You got to now, granted, when you have it retweeted, by people that could be affiliated with Elon Musk and other things like that, it gets hard to know what is true and what is false. But as a consumer, we have to take a very unique eye to these sort of situations, y'all. Don't just listen to whoever you listen to and take their word as gospel. You need to do research on your own. You need to figure out, okay, well, what is actually happening here? Is what's being said really being said? Are we really, providing condoms to Hamas, or is that just something they're trying to say to rally you up? And is that something that anyone on the internet could have made up? We got to think, y'all. It's like the meme. You got to think. Got to. You got to be critical thinkers in this day of age. Critical thinking is a lost skill in this day and age. It is a lost art. We do not know how to communicate any longer because of cell phones, because of screens, all this stuff. We don't know how to critically think anymore. People don't read anymore because they're always on their phones. Half the society. Has anyone seen Idiocracy? It is one of my favorite movies of all time. Favorite movies of all time. And this is where we're heading as society. We are getting dumber and dumber as a society. Dumber and dumber as the generations go on. It's really bad. You need to start. I mean, it comes down to parents making sure that their children get the right education, get the right teaching. I know my mom, amazing, most amazing mother ever. I love her. She's my angel. She taught me early. She was making me read books. She was reading words to me out of the dictionary. She was playing, music. She was teaching me words and numbers in English and Spanish. And she was trying to do all these things to make sure that I grew up and was smart. And thank God to her and my dad. And thank God I turned out very smart. But as a society, we're getting so much more dumb. I sounded dumb by saying dumb without saying more before it. But we just are getting so much more dumber as a society as time goes on. Something that needs to be fixed. And cutting the education department doesn't, and I'm not one for the education department because especially when it was being run by Betsy DeVos. Let's not get started on her. She really demolished that education department. And I'm all for Linda McMahon running it again because I like wrestling and I like Linda McMahon because I think that she put up with a lot of Vince McMahon shit that she didn't have to put up with. And so I don't think she's a bad person like he is per se. I shouldn't say he's a bad person. Allegedly, Vince McMahon allegedly is a bad person. But anyways, I don't think cutting the Department of Education is the answer to that. I think we need more resources into our education. We need more monies paid to teachers. I mean, one of my best friends, I was with her yesterday. She's a teacher. And I know that teachers don't get paid enough for the amount of work that they do and the good amount of work that they do. So we really got to invest more in them. Wombat. I also want to say mass deportations make zero sense to me. I was an econ major. The deportations themselves cost billions and billions, and it could potentially crater our economy. Amen again. You are spot on, Morning Wombat. I said this exact thing on this program about 3 weeks ago. I took international business and marketing was my double major in college. So I had to take economics multiple times, different types of economics. So I am completely with you. When you take out a huge part of the labor force, whether undocumented or not, whether you like them or not, huge part of our labor force doing jobs, by the way, that most Americans don't want to do. Let's be completely honest. Most Americans don't want to go pick, corn in the field. Most Americans don't want to be maids at hotels. Most Americans don't want to do these dirty jobs that the immigrants are willing to do. So when you take out a major part, I shouldn't say majority, but when you take out a big part of the workforce, even if they're undocumented, they're still part of the workforce, which is still part of the economy, then you are inherently going to majorly affect the economy. So I agree with you here as well. I said this before. I am all for deporting criminals. Get rid of all the criminals. Any of the bad people, kick them out. I want them gone. I don't want them here either because I don't want to fear for my life either. But just sending all the immigrants home, including the innocent, hardworking, good people, just doesn't make sense. Not only just does it not make sense from a human being standpoint, I mean, me as a person who loves humans and wants to help as many people as possible, especially the poorest people in the poorest parts of the world, these are the people that I really want to help personally. Like, from a human standpoint, I can't even understand it. But from an economical standpoint, just makes it even more mind-baffling that you would expect to take away a huge part of the workforce and expect that not to harm your economy. So yes, agreed. And yeah, you said that. We're both saying the same thing. Exactly. And yes, there is one part I will play advocate with you here, and that is, yes, they do spend money in their communities, but a lot of time the immigrant families do send money back to their home countries. So a lot of the money does depart the country as well. So we got to acknowledge both sides of the issue there. But yes, they do still spend money here, and taking them out of those jobs, which are not going to be filled by all Americans, right? Yeah, half of them, maybe a quarter might be filled by Americans who need jobs, but not all of them, because again, Americans don't want to do those type of jobs. I know I don't want to do those type of jobs. I hate manual labor. You'll never see me doing construction or some stuff. When I was 16, I was a mechanic for a summer, and that sucked. I don't want to do anything with my hands. That's why I work on a computer. I don't want to do manual labor. So I highly admire those people that can do that sort of thing and do that physical labor for hours and hours and hours. Salute to them, because it's not a job many people want to do. The tariffs. Yeah, I'm going to get into the tariffs in just a second, Morning Wombat. When I get into my, actually, we're going to talk about it right now. That's a great segue, actually. Yes, I do my tariff update, and we're going to talk about it today because tomorrow the tariffs go into effect. Yes, tomorrow Donald Trump's tariffs go into effect on Mexico, Canada, and China. So Morning Wombat says the tariffs are also dumb as shit. Any economist worth a damn would say the same thing. The consequence will be increased prices of goods for consumers. Yes. Basic economics, the law of supply and demand, the law of just as you said, basic economics, when you increase the price of imported goods into a country, inherently, most of those companies are going to pass that cost on to the customer. It's just how it is. Now, I do want to play advocate again with you, because this morning I did read that Chipotle is one company that said they're not going to pass the cost on to their company, that their customers, that they're going to eat the cost themselves. Now, whether they actually do that, again, let's think critically here, y'all. Whether they actually do that or just playing lip service, they're just telling us, we don't know. You actually got to follow up, check their financials, check their quarterly reports, see if they did what they really said they were going to do. And if they didn't, then don't support them, if that's what you base that off of. But yeah, so let's get into this, right? Tariffs do increase prices for consumers because most companies are not going to eat those costs. They're not going to want to eat those costs that are going to allow them to have to eat up a much more bigger part of their revenue, of their profit. Why would they do that when they can just raise their hamburgers 20 cents, 30 cents? And the customer is going to continue to eat it, because not only are we getting dumber as a society, we're also getting more lazy as a society. We're also getting more obese as a society. Fast food is an epidemic. That's what I was going to say, epidemic, and then in my mind I wanted to say epic. I was like, no, it's not epic. It's an epidemic. But yes, so I mean, all the processed food, things like that all really hurts. Not only us and I know, because all I eat is processed food. So you can take that from the mouth of the horse, because I don't like to cook, and I just don't like to cook, and I'm not going to. So most of the food I eat, if I don't eat out, well, I eat out a lot, is processed stuff that I can microwave, or mashed potatoes, rice, ramen, Pop-Tarts, things like that. Yes, I have the diet of a 5-year-old. Don't judge me. Anyways, let's move into this. Tomorrow, the tariffs will start. Remember, President Trump first announced these tariffs 90 days ago, he announced that there will be a 90-day pause. It was just back in when he took office January 20th. He announced the tariffs, 25% on Canada and Mexico. I'm sorry, 25% on Canada and Mexico, and increased tariffs on China. He was adding another 10% on what they already had in there, which they have the most. So China gets tariffed the most. But the problem with that is we get most of our items from China. We get most of our stuff from China. So if we're tariffing anything, you're going to pay more. Just know that, as Morning Wombat and I so astutely pointed out. But one of the reasons that he's tariffing Mexico and Canada is because of border issues. He claims that Canada is allowing a lot of fentanyl to enter the country. I would like to state on this program, as you know, I am the professor. I want to make sure that you are learned on this program. That is not true. It is less than 1%. Actually, I think it's like 0.25%. Let me get the actual number here. I had it. I had it earlier, but it is less than 1% of the actual fentanyl that's coming into the country is coming through Canada. So the tariffs on them really don't make sense to me. I agree. I don't think we should be tariffing Canada. Mexico makes a little more sense just because of the border. I do agree we could probably tariff them a little bit just to try to get that border in order. But border crossings, since Trump has taken office, we must admit, have gone down. They've had the lowest reporting border crossings, in decades, or not decades, maybe since Obama, because Obama was the one that actually was deporting the most people, even more than Trump. So, barring any last minute changes, we are going to see these tariffs on Canada and Mexico come into play tomorrow. So we'll see what he actually says as the actual percentages of the tariffs. But yes, as Morning Wombat and I talked about, when you have tariffs on another country, on their goods that are being imported into this country, us as consumers are going to foot the bill. Again, you may get lucky at some companies. I mentioned Chipotle. They said they're going to eat the cost. Pun was intended. But not most of the 90% of the companies are not going to do that. Probably 95% of the companies are not going to do that. 95% of the companies are going to pass that on to you. So yeah, you may still get the same priced avocado at Chipotle, but I guarantee you go to Chili's, that guacamole going to be an extra 50 cents or $1. You better watch that joint out. Morning Wombat says, because of our trade agreements with Mexico and Canada, yes, formerly NAFTA, and then Trump changed that to the USMCA or something like that. Anyways, he says our auto industries are intertwined. I used to work as a consultant in an auto supply chain. This will hurt the American auto industry. Again, spot on is the Morning Wombat. I really appreciate you commenting with such astute analysis that you're bringing to this program. I really appreciate that. And you're right. We get a lot of our auto industry supplies, things like that, from both Mexico and Canada. So cars are about to really boost up in price. So if you're looking to buy a new car, if you're in the market, the time was this morning. Before tariffs were tomorrow. You better go tomorrow and hope you can find a new car at the lot before that price jacks up. If you're looking for a new car, you better take off of work tomorrow and go in the morning before these tariffs get enacted, because if not, you're going to spend $10,000 more on that Corolla. Why she riding in a Corolla? Riding in a Corolla. Anyways, everything else is going to go up. Your avocados, your electronics, especially if they slap those tariffs on China even more, like he said he was going to do. We get everything from China. All our electronics come from China. So, but you can't, and look, I do need to clarify something on this program, and I'm glad Morning Wombat and I are discussing this here, because I do need to clarify my position on tariffs. My executive producer told me after the last episode that I needed to clarify my position, because she felt that I didn't clarify myself well enough when I said that I initially agreed with the tariffs. When Donald Trump first came out and said that he was going to enact these tariffs, I said the same thing that Morning Wombat and I just talked about. I talked about the economics of it. I said how it was going to hurt the countries by the prices being raised, things like that. I also said, though, that because some of these countries, China, Mexico, Russia, North Korea, whatever, any of these people that are supposed to be, at least in the case of Russia, are enemies, and we'll get to that in just a second. That was crazy. We'll get to the crazy news in just a second. Don't you worry. But I said that I would support his tariffs against those more extreme countries, because I know how much of a threat those countries are to us, because I'm fondly aware of world dynamics, and let's just say that from my time in. Anyways, I don't agree with Canada's tariffs, but I also need to clarify that the reason I said to use the tariffs against those countries like China and our enemies was not because I felt like that was going to make our economy better, or I thought that it was the right thing. It was the fact that these countries that are most adversarial to us, he needs to put his foot down and tariff the shit out of them, because unless they're China, which is probably the only one that could put up with it, because again, they supply so much of our products. If it's any other country in the world, they eventually have to back down, because they're not as powerful, they're not as rich, they don't have the leverage that we have. So technically, if Donald Trump wanted to continue to tariff Canada and Mexico as much as possible until they just said, okay, we give up, he could do that. I don't agree that he should to either one of them, since they're our neighbors. But if you said, oh, he do that to China, North Korea, Russia, I'm all for it, right? Because at some point, well, not China. I take that back. Not China, because again, they supply too much stuff. But Russia, North Korea, other adversarial enemies that are not China, yes, you can do that, because at some point they're going to have to give up, because their economy is going to fail, especially somebody like Russia, whose economy is already on the brink with war and other things. So definitely something we'll keep you updated on this program, though. Morning Wombat, I'm not even trying to get too political either. Oh, no worries. Hey, we do politics on this show. This show is a variety show. It is my weekly news, sports, entertainment, world news headlines. So I think it's important, exactly like you said, it is very important that real world Americans have these discussions between each other, that we can talk and we can discuss, even if we're on different sides of the aisle, which I don't know where you're at, and I don't need to know that. But it's good that we as people can actually discuss instead of the hate and divisiveness, the division that is affecting our country so badly right now. So I really appreciate you tuning in. I loved the honest and real conversation that we had today. Thank you so much. Make sure you stay tuned. We got some more to get into right now. Make sure y'all are subscribed. Ball and Buds, BALLANDBUDS. There's a handy QR code up top. Scan that. That'll take you to our YouTube. You can subscribe. Our Instagram, you can follow. Twitter, TikTok, Bottom Line Sports. Don't forget Combat Sports Special, UFC 313, Clubber D, the Combat G, our UFC, Boxing, MMA Insider, Thursday, 8 p.m., Wednesday, 8 p.m., The Bottom Line Sports, and tomorrow night, 8 p.m., Country Box. I'll be there live. Check me out. Donald Trump tomorrow. President Donald Trump will address the Congress. It sounds like a State of the Union, but remember, the State of the Union is usually the annual address. This is just, let's be completely honest. We know at this point, no matter how you feel about President Trump, he likes to talk. He likes to talk. You know some people in your life that just really like to talk, right? You know those people. Me and my friends back home like to call it people that will put you in a session. Is a sessioner. They are going to talk your ear off until you just give up and you're just like, okay, I gotta walk away. There are people like that. I am not one of them. This is the only time you're really going to hear me talk is when I'm on these TV programs. For the most part, I don't really talk in my own regular life. But some people like to talk. President Trump is one of those people. He likes to hear himself. He likes to hear his own voice. He likes to think out loud. He likes to say what comes to mind and see what the reaction is from the public. So at this point, if you're expecting anything less from him wanting to be front stage and center of the camera and giving an address, even though no one asked for it, of course he's going to do that because that's who he is. He is a reality show star. He is a businessman. He is someone who needs to be in front of the camera in the limelight at all times. Coming from a media personality, person who loves to do the same thing, I can at least respect it. But this does... it does cause an effect sometimes when he gets ahead of his skis and he says things that maybe shouldn't be said or announces things that shouldn't be announced. And we've talked about that plenty of times before in this program. But one thing is just really relevant right now because it came out today. But previously he had said he wasn't into crypto, right? And now all of a sudden he is the crypto president. So much so that he has offered more clarity on the U.S. crypto reserve. Yes, you heard that right. The United States is getting their own crypto reserve department. Trump has announced on Truth Social that it will include Bitcoin, Ethereum, and 3 smaller tokens, Solana, XRP, and Cardano. That is pretty wild news. Obviously, as you know, as we move more into the digital age, this was coming. A digital form of currency was coming. I mean, we already have credit cards and other things anyways. So a digital form of currency was coming. And while you may not trust crypto, and you definitely shouldn't trust meme coins. And we've talked about that on this program before. Definitely don't trust any of that. If you're going to trust anything, trust stuff that is on the blockchain, things that are secure. Bitcoin, Ethereum, those are actually backed by the actual blockchain where it's like insurance and guardrails and parameters and things of that nature. Anyways, so pretty crazy. Y'all look forward to that. We're going to have our own crypto reserve, probably our own sort of coin at some point. I know we already have the US dollar coin, which is what the blockchain uses to base all of the other cryptocurrencies on. It uses the US dollar coin, which is attached to the value of the US dollar. And they use that relative for all the other cryptocurrencies to base itself around. So that's how that works, in case you didn't know. So anyways, we'll look forward to that, see what happens there. In another part of before, you know what? Let's go through a couple other news items before I get into that. I want to do that right before the world news. FBI Director Kash Patel, former prosecutor, intelligence official, was confirmed by the U.S. Senate in a very close vote, 51-49. Another person trying to come back. I told you all about this a few weeks ago. I announced, you heard it here first. Actually, you might have heard it from his brother, Chris Cuomo. Hey, Chris, shout out, my brother. You do a great job. I really appreciate the moderate take that you give, the centrist take that you give, and the intelligence that you bring to politics. I appreciate it. But his brother, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, I told y'all a few weeks ago he was coming back to run for New York City mayor against Eric Adams. Now that Eric Adams is under so much legal was under legal challenges until Donald Trump had his case thrown out. And if you don't think President Donald Trump had Eric Adams' case thrown out, you need to have your head examined because all the facts are right there in front of you. Cuomo enters the race as a significant favorite to beat Eric Adams. Yes, he was a very popular New York City mayor when he was there, and he right now has 38% of the vote. Adams is not even number 2. He's number 3 at 10%. So it looks like Eric Adams, he gone. Hey, brother, look, I don't know how you came in as the law and order mayor and then we're taking bribes on the side, but I mean, that's diabolical, vitriolic, malicious work for a mayor who is a former cop, former prosecutor, former, police personnel to then accept bribe, allegedly, let me make sure I phrase that correctly, allegedly took bribes. Don't need to get canceled. Allegedly. So check the facts is all I'll say. Alleged allegations are out there. You can check the facts and decide for yourself. That being said, again, he is the favorite to win that position back as the New York City mayor. Someone stepping down. Senator Mitch McConnell said he will not seek re-election in 2026. The 83-year-old Republican from Kentucky will retire at the end of his term. You will remember that he's had some freezing episodes on stage lately. He's had some falls as well. So, hey, I'm not conservative or liberal. I don't necessarily have an affinity for Mitch McConnell. I didn't feel one way or the other truly about him. I thought most of the time he was just like a weird guy that had just been there. But the thing that it is that he had so much power wielded within the Beltway, within the government, because he was elected to the Senate in 1984, because he did become the Republican leader in 2007 and did that for over 15 years. He had a lot of power. He was the one running things, when he was at his sharpest form. He was a master tactician, procedural tools, no holds bar approach. He tried to cut down everything that Obama did. They passed the tax reform, which, as we know, turned out to be a lot of tax cuts for wealthy billionaires. And we're looking at more of those coming up now with the new tax cuts that they're trying to make permanent from the previous Trump administration. Those are and I know, look, y'all, I know that, again, you want to hear what you want to hear. I know that you want to be told what you want to be told, but you got to do the research on your own. You got to look at the facts. Yes. Will these tax cuts, if they become permanent, give you a little bit of tax relief, maybe a couple $1,000? Yes, possibly. But do you know who's really going to get the majority of those tax cuts? The wealthy, the rich, the famous. Why do you think Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and the rest of them have their heads directly up President Trump's ass? Because they want kickback. Because they want benefits. They're not investing billions of dollars in the country for no reason. Shout out to my producer. I appreciate you. Thank you. Letting me know I'm doing a great show. I appreciate that. Love you. So you gotta think critically, y'all. Think critically. Anyways, moving on. Defense Department deployed roughly 3,000 additional troops, fleet of armored vehicles to U.S.-Mexico border to support migration enforcement measures. What else happened in the Department of Defense? This is really, I'm a little up in the air about this one. Actually, I'm not up in the air about this one. I am against this one. I'm not even going to say up in the air. I'm just against this one. New Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered that the U.S. Cyber Command stop all offensive cyber operations against Russia. And you're saying, Omar, what? How can we let our enemy just get away unchecked and unfettered without any of our, making sure we're on the offensive about finding out what they're doing and things like that? Well, now that President Donald Trump is trying to have a friendlier relationship with President Vladimir Putin in Russia, they have decided that we are only going to defend our cyberspace against Russia, but not go on the offensive to make sure that we are staying proactive to what they are doing. No. What? Completely and utterly unacceptable. As a veteran, as a person who has a lot of knowledge about this subject, hear it from me. Hear it from these mouth, this lip that is telling you the truth. You do not want that. You do not want this. We need to be on the offensive and the defensive against all of our adversaries and enemies. And even if we want to have a better relationship with Russia, or Donald Trump does, President Trump, that does not mean we do not need to be on the offensive, staying proactive about what their capabilities are. Because the moment we go off the offensive and we just stay defensive, that's the moment where we don't stay, as they call in the military, situationally aware. Or as some people now like to call it, as they've twisted the term woke into this crazy, dog whistle. Woke just means situationally aware. That's all that means, if you know the original content of the word. But anyways, moving on from here, since most of y'all don't know things like that, I'm the professor. That's why I teach you. The U.S. Cyber Command, again, stopping all offensive missions against Russia. I just cannot get down with this. We need to make sure we stay on the offensive, again, against all of our adversaries, to make sure that we are focusing on knowing exactly where they are, what they have, what they're doing, what satellites they're building, what kind of weapons they have, what kind of troop formations they're doing. Any of these things are very, very important when it comes to the defense of our country, and defense means offense. You have to go on. I'm going to give you a football analogy, okay? Because probably a lot of y'all watching right now are sports fans, because it's probably where you've seen me from, Bottom Line Sports or otherwise. Let me give you a football analogy here. I was about to give you one, but that was actually going to probably hurt my case, because Peyton Manning, God bless his soul, when he threw 9 touchdowns and 17 interceptions for the Broncos, but they still won the Super Bowl, that would be an outlier. But usually in sports, and in football mainly, or in basketball too, when you go have a good offense and you're always going on the offense, you're always putting pressure offensively, it takes the pressure off your defense. It allows your defense to relax and rest and keep their guards up for when it's most important. It allows your defense to be most efficient and effective when your offense is that much more powerful. Does that make sense? So if we are taking our foot off the gas of offensively being proactive and going on the offense in the cyber world against Russia, if we take our foot off the gas there, our defense has to work that much harder in order to defend our country and defend our borders from Russian attacks, which, by the way, they have nuclear weapons. It's not like they don't have nuclear weapons. They have a big-ass nuclear stockpile, not as big as ours, but they got a big-ass nuclear stockpile too. I did it on the show one time. I forget. I believe we have like 2,500 or something nuclear weapons, 26, something like that. And I think Russia has like, I want to say like 800. So they probably got like a third of ours, but they still have them. So don't act like they ain't a threat, because they definitely threaten Ukraine, and we'll get to that in just a second. Actually, you know what? No, we're going to move into that now. I was going to do this other story about the green card into the United States, where you can pay $5 million to get a green card from another country to come to the United States and work. I mean, if you have the money, I don't know who the hell just has $5. Well, a lot of these countries are really rich, so their people may have it. I was going to go into that story, but no, we're not. There's too big of a story out there that we haven't touched on yet, and we've obviously been going for almost 2 hours, so I need to make sure that I get you all out of here in a good amount of time. Again, thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to Ball and Buds. If you're watching on YouTube, please smash that subscribe button right now. Hit that like button, please, as well right now for me. It is free. It costs you nothing, but it helps me out tremendously. Please hit that like button, the love, the heart, the laugh, like a love laugh, life decor photo. That's one of my go-tos. I think it's pretty funny. It's kind of corny, but it's still funny. McConnell is a bad person. Politicians should only serve about 10 years only term. Yeah, I mean, I don't know him as a human being, so I can't say whether he's bad or good, depending on what side of the aisle you're on. You're definitely going to feel one way or the other about him, but I definitely agree with you on term limits. Term limits need to be a thing for all politicians. The Supreme Court should not be lifetime appointees either. Me and my political strategist, Amul Madan, talked about this about a month and a half ago. Supreme Courts should have, 20-year term limits at the most. Most politicians, senators, 10 years, 15 at the most. We need to start putting the limits, and there needs to be age limits. If you're over the age of 70, get the hell out. If you're over the age of 70, you don't need to be a politician no more. We need the fresh voices to come in because you're not in tune with the majority of the country anymore, because the average age of death of Americans is 76. Okay, so let me change that. 75. If you're over the age of 75, you can no longer serve in Congress, as a senator, why am I blanking right now? Oh, geez. Governor, as a president, as anything. Yeah, I said 70 at first too, but I think 75 is maybe a little better just because the average age of death is 76. So I guess we don't want to put people to their graves too early. You know what I mean? People still want to work in their old age. I know some people know about that. When they should just be enjoying retired life. Let's move into the biggest story of the weekend. Oh my, what? Did y'all see what happened Friday in the Oval Office? Did y'all see what happened Friday? Wowzers. There's a picture for you. There's a nice little picture for you. Wow. What happened? I was going to come on live on Friday, and I couldn't even get my head completely wrapped around what had just happened. The news was coming hot and heavy. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wait to go Monday when I can have the whole weekend again and have everything right. What happened Friday, yo? There was a blow up in the Oval Office. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was on his way to the United States to sign a minerals deal in which the United States would gain 50% of the mineral resources of Ukraine, or would have the rights to reserve 50% of the resources to Ukraine in exchange for what Ukraine was hoping to be a security deal, security guarantees by the United States against Russia. So what happens? Let me break it down for you. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky arrives. They all go into the meeting chambers, try to hash out this deal. He finds out, there's no securities. There's no security guarantee here against Russia. We're going to be left out in the open, in the cold. So what happens? He's like, oh man, well, I don't know if this is right for my country. They get out to the Oval Office. Everything's going fine. They're taking questions for about 20 minutes. These things are standard. They're going to go have lunch after this. It's all going to be great. They're going to sign this mineral deal. Blase, blase, boom, 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 boom. Next thing you know, the last question, and President Trump said this. He said, I'll take one last question. This is the part where President Zelensky messed up at. This is the part where I will say that he messed up. If you've seen other times when, and this is not just President Trump, but any time a president of the United States hosts other world leaders in the White House, in the Oval Office, usually those world leaders are very deferential, very respectful. Yes, no, not going to say anything. We saw when the Jordanian president came a few weeks ago, and Trump said, we're going to turn Israel into, the Gaza Strip into, the Riviera. And he was just like, okay, all right. But he handled it later. He said something later because that you don't want to make a fuss. And the problem with Zelensky here is he made too much of a fuss in public. He tried to fight President Donald Trump, and that's just not someone that you want to try to fight with in public because he's used to these things. Again, he had a show where he fired people live, like on TV. This is what he does. This is him. He is a wrestling heel. This is what he does. And for Zelensky to come out and challenge him in his own home was not wise at all. He should have, it was the last question. All he had to do was keep his mouth shut. It was the last question. All he had to do was keep his mouth shut, go to the back, sign the deal, get it figured out. But shout out to him for being a man. At least he's a man about his shit. That's true. You're going to say at least he's an alpha about his shit because he was like, well, at least I'm going to try to defend my country here in public. Was it smart? No. Was it admirable? Yes. To try to save his country? Yes. But the fact is he tried to put President Donald Trump on the spot. J.D. Vance, like a bulldog, Vice President J.D. Vance, got all up in his ass. All up in his ass. Now, I think a little of this was obviously offenses, as we talked about earlier. I believe that a lot of this was already pre-planned between Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. I believe they talked about it before where they were probably like, all right, look, this guy may try to pull something at some point, and if he does, this is what we're going to do. Boom, 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 boom. And that's what you should do. You should be prepared for all scenarios. But if it is what they planned, then, they also figured out what they were going to say in advance as well and how they were going to, double team the Ukrainian president. Again, in terms of if you're trying to save your country with the minerals deal and you feel like the best way to do it is to get through the conversation, just keep your mouth shut. Even the Ukrainian, the ambassador lady that was there, all she could do was just put her head in her hands. She was like, I can't believe this just happened. We did all this work for nothing. Now, Donald Trump is still left if Zelensky comes back peacefully, wanting to get peace for his country. Right now, that's really just out of the question for at least the next, month or so until they try to figure this out. Trump is obviously going to go back to Putin and try to work more stuff on their side. But the fact that this happened was just crazy. Just watching this video, and I was watching it live because I was doing work for my client on the couch, and I had it on live. I was like, oh, this is going down. He's a slobber knocker. This whole episode is like a slobber knocker. Shout out to JR. Damn, we talked about John Cena in Iraq. We talked about Donald Trump versus Volodymyr Zelensky. People just battling, just brawling. Brawls, banter, and bravado out this piece. But it's just a shameless plug. Shameless plug. But anyways, or total evisceration. Shout out Hot Take Jake. So I feel in this instance, if he wanted to actually get the deal done, he needed to keep his mouth shut. But he spoke up because he felt it was the only time he was going to have a chance to speak up against what he thought were the lack of security protections, what he felt was a lack of security guarantee for him, which means that then they would be giving up the minerals and possibly have, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, maybe conspire to take over Ukraine completely, which is not completely out of the question. Don't get that out of your mind whatsoever. But it was a huge blow up. Can't believe it happened. We're going to see what happens if this deal actually plays out. My producer says, I don't think Ukraine should give 50% of the mineral. I don't agree. He needs to apologize. He was not fighting. I think the U.S. was bullying him. Okay, well, I will agree with you in one thing, and I did say this a couple weeks ago. I agree. I think 50% is ridiculous. I think 50% actually destroys the Ukraine economy and their future because they need that sort of minerals in order to help them to rebuild their country. So I do agree. I think it should be like 25%. I think we're trying to take a little too much, but I do think that they need to give something up because we spent way too much money to support them in a war that we had nothing to do with. So I do agree that, yeah, it shouldn't be 50%. It should probably be 25%, but they still owe us something. They still owe us something. And some people may say that, Vance and Trump were bullying him. And yes, if they premeditated that, then yeah, it could be considered bullying. But at the same time, they're trying to protect the interest of the United States, just like Volodymyr Zelensky was trying to protect the interest of the Ukraine. So they're both trying to defend their country. So in that aspect, they're all right. they're all correct because they're doing what's best for their people. But in terms of actually getting something done in the end, I mean, Ukraine definitely is not a winner here. The U.S. really doesn't have anything to lose. It's not like we don't have money, although we just talked about fraud, waste, and abuse earlier. They should stop spending so much money on this stuff, and maybe we wouldn't have to do so much cutting with DOGE, but that's another point for another day. But I do agree that 50% is way too much. So we'll see what happens there. We will see what happens there. British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer announced over the weekend that his government has actually came up with a plan for this war to end. So he has come up with they have come up with the parliament in the United Kingdom has come up with the plan that they are going to present to President Donald Trump about the ways that they can have a ceasefire for this Russian-Ukraine war to end the war. So we'll see what that actually is when it comes out. But do know that one of the things that Zelensky wanted was a guarantee that they'd be able to get into NATO. Both President Donald Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth have said that NATO is out of the cards for Ukraine. I understand why Ukraine wants a NATO deal. Obviously, they want the security of the United States and their allies around the world to be able to protect themselves from Russia. But I also see where President Donald Trump and the U.S. would be coming from in saying, well, we don't want any more people in NATO because that's just more money that we have to pay out to protect countries that are not ours. So when it comes to protecting, again, the United States interests, I can see and I can understand exactly where they're coming from. Again, do I think that means that we should just leave them out there to get genocided? And I know that's not a word, but for lack of just using genocide as a non-plural, which wouldn't have been right in that context either. And I don't think there is a past tense for genocide. Genocided. I guess there is not. Anyways, just not to leave them there to get murdered. We can't just let Russia run roughshod over them. I mean, especially since we already spent all this money, they got to at least protect them, right? So, either way you look at that, you might have a different feeling about that. But one way that I feel about, I do agree with one thing that President Donald Trump has said about the NATO thing. European countries need to start giving more. They got to start giving more. I looked at the actual percentage earlier from U.S. To Russia or to Europe, and they tried to put the chart as it was the same, and I laughed. They said, okay, proportion of spending, and it had United States, 300 and something billion, and then it had Europe, 300 and a little more billion, like 20 more billion more. I was like, whoa, nah, you ain't gonna get me. I'm a professor. I teach students at universities. You're not. Yeah, I was born in the morning, but I wasn't born this morning. You ain't gonna get me with that. I already know what that means. I already know that means that you are trying to correlate the United States as its own country to Europe as its own country. No. Europe has many nations. Europe has, I don't even know how many nations they have. I think it's like 15 or 20 nations they have over there. I should know the exact number to that, and I don't. That's bad. But they have a lot more nations than us. So that's not a correct comparison. I just want to point out. But I did think, I chuckled. I was like, that's not even cool. Don't even do that. Like, you're talking about one country versus many. Anyways, so we will see what happens there. But that was a crazy Friday. Crazy. All right. Moving on to our last pieces of world news before we get you out of here for the day. Again, I appreciate all y'all for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to Ball and Buds, BALLANDBUDS on YouTube, and as well, you can use that QR code to subscribe. Please make sure you hit that like button for us. I really appreciate it. It is free. It doesn't cost you anything to hit that like button, a heart, a laugh, a wow. Just give me something. Helps us out in the algorithm. All right, let's on to the Israel, Hamas, Gaza Strip ceasefire. The update here, as we've been telling you about this all along, Israel and Hamas have ended the first phase of the ceasefire, and that ended with the exchange of 4 Israeli hostages for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. So the issue here was that a couple of the Israelis that were returned deceased. And obviously that is a very big issue when exchanging hostages, as the country that is looking to get their hostages back want them alive. So, I mean, had to expect that there was going to be some kind of pushback if you're sending dead hostages back. They did. Israel didn't like it. Now Israel is starting to push back before they go into the second phase, and they're saying that they now need to release more people because they had to have these funerals for these people that came out and were released dead. So we'll see what happens here. Obviously, I told you this could break down at any moment. We know how long this conflict has been going on, hundreds of years. Hopefully it does not break down. But right now, this is a little roadblock that we're having that could turn out to be a really big issue. So we'll see what happens there. As always, I will keep you updated here. But I do want to say humanitarian agencies have estimated that roughly 60% of the structures in Gaza are destroyed, including 92% of residences and 50% of hospitals. Because of those funerals, Israel has blocked humanitarian aid from entering Gaza and calls Hamas to accept the U.S. brokered extension of the ceasefire after the first phase ended. So again, huge roadblock here, y'all. We're going to see what happens. Israel's not happy with the amount and conditions of the hostages being returned, including some of them being deceased. And as well, you look at the other side of things. No, I do not agree. Donald Trump said he wanted to turn the Gaza Strip into the Riviera of the Middle East. You cannot do that. We've talked about international law on this program. You cannot take someone else's country from them. No matter what you think, we cannot do that. No, it's their country. If they want to live there, they are allowed to live there, and no one can take them out of there. It's literally the definition of ethnic cleansing. And it's not even legal by international law. So it's not going to happen. But that being said, I do agree on one thing. How do you rebuild that? How do you rebuild that? They don't have the money to rebuild that. 92% of residences? 50% of hospitals? 60% of the whole entire country? Look, if they want to stay there, it's their right, and it's their country, and no one can tell them any different or force them out. But why would you want to? I get it's your homeland, but if there's no home to go back to, is it home anymore? Thoughts from the professor. Chew on that one. Moving on, a couple last notes. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, at least 60 people have died and 1,000 have been infected from an unknown illness. Now, they have said they tested for Ebola and Marburg viruses and ruled them out. So, oh no, do not tell me that we're having another infection strain coming out of anywhere in the world, wherever it comes from, but another one that could possibly resemble Ebola out of the African region with bleeding, vomiting, diarrhea, all these things. Not good. So what happened? The outbreak began in January in the village of Boloko, where 3 small children died within 2 days of, not the best thing to say out of my mouth, eating a dead bat. This is how poor people are, y'all. Before you react and judge, because I know some of y'all, when I just said that, I know in your minds you thought, oh, these disgusting human beings, how could they eat a dead bat? Of course they got sick. They deserve it. How about you think of it the other way? How about you think of it that they're so poor and they don't have the money and resources that that we have, that they can't even have a bowl of rice to eat and they have to eat a dead bat? Why don't you think of it that way? Have some damn compassion. Moving on. So anyways, a second outbreak began 2 weeks later in Bomate, a village more than 100 away, killing 45, infecting more than 400. So there's no link between the two villages. The World Health Organization is testing patients for a variety of causes, from food poisoning to typhoid. This country of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, has seen dozens killed by similar unknown illnesses, including severe malaria, just back in December, and is dealing with a wave of Mpox cases, which have killed 1,200 people since early 2024. Now, some of you as well may be thinking, well, that's their fault. They have to deal with that. But again, this is the point where things like us taking ourselves out of funding the WHO or U.S. aid, with DOGE cutting U.S. aid, the problem is that, again, when you take a chainsaw and not precision clippers, you cut some things that are really needed. And some of those things are disease programs for third world countries. Why? Because the diseases could travel here, you dummies. Why the hell do you think we spend the money on it? Think. We spend the money in these other third world, second world countries to help them so we don't get their problems. Man, y'all got to start thinking. Y'all some dummies, man. Y'all got to start thinking. Use your brain. Stuff I see online is ridiculous. Start thinking. The less we give, the less we help, the more problems we're going to have in the long run. Because anything that starts anywhere in the world, as you saw with COVID, gets spread to the whole damn world. Look at bird flu now. Paying $12 damn for a dozen of eggs. Get the hell out of here. 2 more stories on the books before we get you out of here. Researchers have found evidence of humans. Listen to this, y'all. This is crazy. So, scientists and researchers found evidence of human beings living in tropical rainforests as early as 150,000 years ago. 80,000 years earlier than we ever thought before. Man, that's crazy how research and science and paleontology and all of these other industries and studies can so help us to learn about the world. I think it's so fascinating. Humans were alive 150,000 years ago, living in tropical rainforests. It's crazy. Anyways, what else? Engineers have also integrated network fiber-based computer into garments. So now, y'all, like, this is going to be especially good for athletes. They'll be able to wear clothes with the computer built into the fiber of the clothes. So when they work out, it's not going to hinder them. It's not going to be heavy. It's going to be like wearing normal workout clothes, but it'll be able to gauge their activity, monitor health conditions, and all kinds of other crazy stuff. So this world technology is crazy. AI is getting crazy. We are just, as I said, I guess I'm contradicting myself now because I did say earlier how much dumber of a world we're becoming, which is true. But at least in terms of AI and science and research and stuff like that, we are getting, at least more advanced. Camel intense until rebuild. Yeah, but that's the problem. How long does that take? That could take decades. That could take 100 years for all we know. That's not going to be easy to do. Just to clean it up would take at least probably 5-10 years just to clean up the rubble. And then another 10-15 years to build. You're looking at a minimum 20 years just to get anything even up. Come on now. A lot of those people are going to be dead that even live there. They got to go they're probably got to find somewhere else to live. I hate it for them. Sucks that they have to leave their homeland. But, I'm not paying for that to be real built when I can just go somewhere nearby. No. What? No, I ain't got money for that. But I know what you putting your money on, and that's your boy, Omar, the Professor Fonseca.
Subscribe on YouTube at Ball and Buds for sports and entertainment live streams and videos. Boom.